I'm pleased today to be joined virtually by my friend and friend of the dealers, Congressman Tom Suozzi. Congressman Suozzi is a Democrat who represents parts of Queens and North Shore of Long Island here in New York in the House of Representatives. Tom is an enormously hardworking member of Congress. He is an attorney and CPA who serves on the powerful House Ways and Means Committee, which has jurisdiction over taxes and trade. He's also the vice chair of the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus, which has been in the news recently as they have been trying to broker compromise on the stalled pandemic-related economic stimulus package. Before being elected to Congress in 2016, Tom served as mayor of his hometown of Glen Cove, Long Island from 1994 to 2001, and as Nassau County Executive from 2002 to 2009. He's a graduate of Boston College and of the Fordham University School of Law. He and his wife, Helene, have 3 children. Tom's district actually stretches almost the entire length of Long Island's North Shore and parts of New York City's Queens County, and has over 40 franchised new car dealers in his district. Congressman, welcome, and thank you very much for participating in the National Automobile Dealers Association's annual Washington conference.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me on. You guys have been great friends for a long time. You personally have been a tremendous help to me over the years, educating me on all the different issues you face, your dealerships face, and it's great to join you and everybody on the conference. How many people are going to be watching today? Do you know?
Normally, when we're in Washington face-to-face, is between 400 and 500. Our understanding is could be 1,000 new car dealers and associations around the country.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see everybody.
So thank you very, very much. And listen, let's just clear the air for a second, Tom, if we can. Do you have any comment on your interest of doing a career change and being a technician in the automobile industry? Before you actually say something, I want to share with the audience a few photographs of a recent visit you had in your district at North Bay Cadillac. So we can go. So a number of months ago, before the pandemic occurred, you had called and said, listen, I want to visit a dealership and I want to see what there is, what kind of jobs there is in the auto industry on it. And we brought you into North Bay Cadillac, and we actually got you, as you can see.
I changed oil.
That's right, exactly, on it. And it was great. You lifted up the car. You were preparing. We actually had a service manager right behind you in case anything happened on safety. Here you're underneath the chassis of the car, taking a look at the vehicle, see what's going on. You actually found, I think, something that was of concern to you, which again, all dealers love to see service technicians do. That helps them out with their RO on it. And then you started to prepare, as you had mentioned, doing an oil change on it. So getting good advice from one of the service technicians at North Bay Cadillac on it. And here again, getting prepared to do that oil change, starting to loosen the lug nut there was really the hand on that wrench is pretty strong. I appreciate it. It was not as easy as you thought it was initially. You were really putting a little bit of elbow grease into this, no pun intended. And they are removing the lug.
I'm not changing careers though, Mark. Listen, we need to accept the fact and understand the fact that in the United States of America, 60% of Americans do not graduate from college. And we need to create jobs for people where they have skills and they can make a decent living. And I went to meet with you guys and come see what the auto technicians do and others do. I visited your apprenticeship training program, which is fantastic over in Whitestone. And people need to understand that car dealers are not as simple as just, you get a car from the manufacturer and you sell it on the lot. There's a lot more to it. And there's some great jobs available for people, an important part of our economy. And the more people understand that, the more we can support the industry.
And that need, and thank you, and that need for technicians, even according to the U.S. Department of Labor, is now hit over 60,000 positions that are available, high-paying careers, like you just said, on it. And I just want to say that you really did look very satisfied with yourself here of accommodating it. And made a lot of friends in the dealership, though I'm not sure what the service manager was pointing to, maybe something's missing on it. Jack Weidinger, as you know very well, the principal of the Cadillac dealership, really enjoyed having you there with him. So thank you. And also thank you for just, again, putting light on the fact that there is a real big need for jobs in the auto industry and good paying careers. So thank you for that, that tour that you took on it. So with that, after that memory lane drive down there, and again, if you do want a position, please let us know. I'm sure we can get you a job easily. Let me touch base again on a couple of important questions right off the bat. Everything's about the coronavirus these days and the economic stimulus bill that's going on in Washington. So let's start with that. The Problem Solvers Caucus, which consists of 25 House Democrats and 25 House Republicans, last week unveiled a roughly $1.5 trillion stimulus proposal that included a second round of $1,200 checks, enhanced employment benefits, liability protections, and money for schools, coronavirus testing for state governments and the U.S. Postal Office and small businesses. You publicly supported the proposal. To many, it looks like a reasonable compromise that would attract large bipartisan majorities in both chambers. What's the latest with this effort to bring more pandemic relief to the American people?
So I'm the vice chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus. As you said, 25 Democrats and 25 Republicans. I've been doing that for 3.5 years now. And our goal is to say, listen, people are sick and tired of the politics, the partisanship. They want people to just sit down and work together and work it out. And we all know that we need to do another stimulus package. Everybody knows that. And the bickering back and forth and Mitch McConnell saying, blue state bailout, which is just the height of hypocrisy, is not helping anybody. So the Democrats, which I'm one, along with one Republican actually voted with us, Peter King from Long Island, voted 4 months ago for a $3.5 trillion package, of which $1 trillion was for state and local aid, very important part of it, as well as money for PPP money and EIDL money for small businesses, and everything else that you talked about related to testing and unemployment insurance and stimulus checks, everything like that. The Republicans said, well, let's, especially Mitch McConnell said, let's do a pause. Let's wait and see what happens. Well, meanwhile, we've seen a lot of more people get sick, a lot more people die, a lot more people suffering, especially when the unemployment insurance ran out. The big controversy, should it be $600? Should it not be $600? Is it encouraging people not to go back to work? The liability insurance question. So they didn't propose anything. Then they said, oh, we'll do $1 trillion. And then they waited a little bit longer. They said they voted on something that was for only $500 billion. And it didn't include anything for state and local aid. And it took out a lot of important things. So we got the problem solvers together. We've been working on this for some time. And we said, listen, we have to find common ground. And it's not just about the money. What do we need to do? We need to help the state and local governments. All of our schools are going to be devastated throughout America. Here on Long Island in New York, where I live, our property taxes are so high already. Our state taxes are so high already. The states throughout the country and the local governments have lost so much money from sales taxes. There's so much less in sales tax revenues that they're devastating. And we can't afford to cut our schools by 20% or raise property taxes, God forbid. So this is a problem for Democrats and Republicans throughout America. So we said, let's just agree how much money would we need for 1 year instead of for 2 years, 1 year for actual COVID expenses and actual lost revenues. And so we got that number down to $500 billion. And then we did that with every single thing. We looked at unemployment insurance. We said, let's do $450 a week for the next 8 weeks. And then after that period, we'll go up to $600, but it can't exceed how much money you made before. It can't be incentivized to not go back to work. So you can get up to 100% of what you made before, but only up to $600 a week. Where we live in New York, that's not a lot of money. In other places in the country, that's a humongous amount of money. So we try to find a balance. We said we have to put money for testing, so on and so forth. So we got 25 Republicans to agree to state and local aid. We got 25 Democrats like myself to agree for liability reform and for other things that related to business that the Republicans wanted. So we try to find a compromise. So we're going to see, the president said, well, we should go for a bigger number. So that's a big step forward. They're looking at the state and local aid, which they haven't been doing, which you'll never get anybody to vote for it if you don't do state and local aid. And I talked to some senator friends of mine, Republicans and Democrats, on Tuesday night, I think it was, or Wednesday night, and they said, let's see what happens this weekend. We think we can get something going this weekend. So we're hoping that early next week. I'm sorry, well, this is going to be filmed. This is going to be filmed. When is it going to be shown?
Next Tuesday.
So Tuesday, we should find out if we see some action by the Senate on Tuesday, the day of this conference. That'll be because of the problem solvers help get this thing moving again, and they'll stimulate the economy. It'll get the stock market moving. It'll get money in people's hands. It'll help small businesses, and it'll help state and local government.
Well, you also mentioned in your comments about the PPP program, which was enormously important for the dealers all around the country and businesses in general on it. Here in New York, we had done a survey of our members in the beginning of the coronavirus when things were shut down, and businesses were off some 86%. They were considered essential for the service part of it on it. So the PPP loans became aggressive, and about 88%, I understand, nationwide participated in this program on it. So it's extremely important for them. Now there's a dispute between the IRS and Congress, as you know, whether the PPP loan expenses are tax deductible on it. Dealers support corrective legislation to enhance the PPP loan expenses that are to be deductible on it. Do you have a sense that this is going to be fixed before the election?
I doubt it'll be fixed before the election, but it needs to be fixed. There's no question about it. But there's just too much going on. We have too many big things swirling about. It's going to be hard to find common ground. Listen, I'm all about common ground. I'm always working to try and work across the aisle to try and find common ground, to move things forward, to solve problems. But it'll be hard with everything going on to get that done before the election. You never know, but I don't think it's going to happen before the election.
Thank you. Moving on to the federal excise tax, the FET on heavy-duty trucks. In July, you signed a letter to the Speaker circulated by the Representative Chris Pappas of New Hampshire, along with 54 other House Democrats in support of a temporary suspending of the 12% federal excise tax on heavy-duty trucks. Your support is especially appreciated because you serve on the House Ways and Means Committee, which has jurisdiction over all federal taxes on it. And on June 18th, you participated in a conference call with the dealer principals of Gabrielli, heavy-duty truck dealer out on Long Island, Armando Carlo and Sandra Gabrielli on it. Tell me how your thoughts about the grassroots advocacy back in your district to help you inform this important issue. What kind of role did it play for you?
Well, it makes a big difference. I've known the Gabrielli family for years. When I was county executive, even when I was mayor of my hometown, we did business with Gabrielli's for equipment that we used for the city of Glen Cove and for the county of Nassau. So I know them, I trust them, I have a relationship with them. When they tell me what's really going on the ground, that makes a big difference. That's very different than reading a briefing paper or, reading an article. It makes a big difference when you can talk to people you know and trust and find out what their insight is. And it was very helpful with encouraging me to help work on this issue.
They're a great dealer, truck dealer, as many of our other truck dealers are, who employ so many people and have been in the family business for, I think for about 60 years or so, I think he was mentioning. So
a lot of car dealers still are family businesses that go on a long, long time. Even some members of Ways and Means are car dealers. I think Kelly's a car dealer, and Vern Buchanan, I think he might be a car dealer too. I'm not sure.
Absolutely. Moving on to the SALT deduction for a second. Congressman, many of the dealers in New York, California, New Jersey, and lots of other states had their taxes go up when Congress limited the state and local tax deduction to $10,000 in 2017. You are the author of a bill which passed the House to temporarily restore this deduction. Do you anticipate your legislation eventually being enacted?
It will definitely happen someday. I mean, I had a big victory in the middle of impeachment and the USMCA in December. I got that bill passed by the House of Representatives. It went nowhere in the Senate, obviously. Then I got it included, even better, I got it included in the HEROES Act by the Democrats. And I got some Republicans to support me in that effort as well. I got about 10 Republicans to support me as well in that effort. Just as important, Chuck Schumer finally did a press conference with me recently and said he will make this his number one priority if he gets the majority of the House, is to restore the state and local tax deduction fully. So this is really important to us. People need to understand that this is a body blow for those of us. We've relied on the state and local tax deduction since the beginning of the progressive income tax code. There was a big fight when they first created the progressive tax, income tax, federal tax in America. And they said, whatever you do, you can't screw up the state and local governments. And they said, okay, this is the first deduction we're putting in the tax code when we have federal taxes, is to have a state and local tax deduction. It's been around for 100 years. And that was a compact in place for 100 years. They broke that compact when they took it out back in 2017. It's devastating. People are moving out of New York, out of New Jersey, out of California, other places. It's been exacerbated by coronavirus, people going to their vacation homes, people moving out. What happens? Now, some people say, oh, this is to benefit the rich. The rich people get the benefit of the state and local tax deduction. The people who get the benefit are the states, because what happens is if people move out of town, then who's going to pick up the slack? Who gets left holding the bag? The people that didn't move away, the low and moderate income people, and the other people that decided to stay in their hometowns. They get left holding the bag. So what are we going to do? Are we going to cut services in the midst of the coronavirus, or are we going to raise taxes? We can't do either of those things. They don't make sense. So we must have the state and local tax deduction back. My number one priority. I'm always fighting for it. We need bipartisan support, and I've been working on getting that. I got about 12 Republicans helping us on this.
Thank you. We need you to be successful on that, not only, again, here in New York, not only for residents in many places around the country, but also for our retail dealers who have really been impacted on that. So we really hope that you're successful on it. Let me go to tariffs on it and turning to trade. The administration has threatened, as you know, to levy a tariff of up to 25% on imported automobiles and auto parts. And this is our industry is a global industry. There is no vehicle that is 100% built here in the United States. There are parts coming from all over the world for the auto industry. And the increase in that kind of a tariff of 25% would clearly mean that vehicle prices would go up, and it would stifle the demand for new vehicles and a loss of jobs ultimately on it. So what are your views on new tariffs on autos and auto parts?
I mean, the bottom line is the president's kind of used this as a sledgehammer, and it hasn't been that nuanced. Globalism is a new phenomenon. We saw this starting to happen in the 80s. We all remember the battles we had with Germany and Japan and the effects on the car industry back in the 80s. But in the past 10 years, globalism has really taken off, as has technology. And we have to consider what's happening in this new world that we live in. We need to encourage the rebuilding of the middle class in America. Same thing with getting the auto technicians to get trained so they can work in these good jobs. We need to train people in America so they can get the good wages that they need in order to survive in America. The middle class is shrinking in our country, and it is a major problem. And some of our competitors in other countries are cheating. I just had a conference yesterday talking about forced labor, literally camps where they steal people from their families. They put them in forced labor camps in the western part of China, in the Xinjiang region. And they talk about, crimes against humanity and forced sterilization and other things like that. So we need to look at the world with new, fresh eyes again about the balance between the economy, which is so important. I'm a strong capitalist. We need to promote the economy, but we also need to promote people making a wage in America that's decent, which requires training and job skills that they can afford to live here. So they can, the promise of America, I'm a first generation American, is you're willing to work hard. What do you get in return? You get enough money so you can have a house, you can educate your kids, you can have health insurance, and you can retire one day without being scared. So we need to rebuild that. And we need to look at what's going on in the rest of the world. China is cheating, and they treat their own people terribly. And there are other places like that in the world that we need to start paying more close attention to. We can not ignore these despicable behaviors that are happening in some places in the world. And we need to discourage doing business with these places. So we got to balance this all. And we have to recognize if you just put a tariff in place, what does it do? It raises the cost of the car. And that goes down to the consumer. So how do you balance good prices for the consumer? How do you balance the need to build the middle class? How do you balance the international relations and global relations? It's all got to be looked at. It requires a little nuance. Everything can't be hit with a sledgehammer. So I'm hoping that come January that we'll have people who will be looking at things in a more thoughtful, nuanced way that take into account the very real concerns folks like the automobile dealers have, and prices, and also wages, and also what's going on in the world.
And it is a very complicated and different world that we live in these days than it was just 10, 20 years ago on it. So you mentioned the fact that in your comments at the end is that hopefully in January there'll be, we'll have a constructive dialogue. So I'm going to get away from policy issues and just ask you a political question: is what do you predict is going to happen in the November elections?
I think anybody who predicts what's going to happen in November is just making it up off the top of their head. Nobody knows what's really going to happen. Listen, I'm a Democrat. I'm voting for Joe Biden. I'm hoping we maintain the Senate. I'm voting the House. I hope we take over the Senate. It'll be great for SALT. It'll be great for looking at building the middle class in this country. I think it'll be great for the car dealers because it'll stimulate the economy. You'll see massive infrastructure programs happening. There'll be a lot of investment in the economy that'll get things really charged up in the economy. So I'm hopeful that there'll be some change. Whatever it is, it can't be the Democrats, the Republicans. It's got to be all of us working together for the country to try and move us forward, given the fact that it's so complicated these days. Globalism, technology, everything's complicated. You can't solve complicated problems in an environment of fear and anger where everybody's divided from each other, and some people try and promote fear and anger on a regular basis. You need people of goodwill to sit down across from the table and say, listen, I don't agree with you on this, but I want to get to the same result you do, which is to make people's lives better, make our country better and stronger, make our economy better. Let's sit down, let's work together and find some common ground. That's what I've devoted my career to. And I know a lot of other elected officials who want the same thing. We need to work together to make things as best as possible for our people in a very complicated environment with a lot of complicated issues, whether it's international relations, or it's manufacturing, or it's the middle class, or it's climate, or it's immigration, or it's healthcare, or it's guns, whatever the issue is, they're all complicated. Let's stop yelling at each other. Let's be conscious of the fact that some of our strategic adversaries in the world are trying to undermine us on a regular basis. Russia, China, North Korea, Iran is sending out negative messages all the time, trying to foment civil unrest in our country, trying to take the extreme voices out there and make it like that's everybody. Most people are like the people on this call. They're in the middle somewhere, and they say, listen, can't you just work together to try and help us? That's what people want. That's what I'm committed to doing. Thanks so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it. You're a great
Tom,
guy.
thank you again for all your friendship and everything that you've done over the years, and your understanding of the industry and listening to us on our issues that we have. You've always been a great friend, and the dealers really appreciate you being here today. So thank you so much.
Thanks, my man. Takes teamwork to make the dream work. Talk to you soon.
Take care.